then certainly the poor will again be left behind. It's also important to be able to raise the level of scientifically trained manpower, which is needed for technological progress. Investment in research and development, R&D, is thus indicated. And support to higher education, budgets must be re-examined so that the support to higher education can be geared towards R&D activities. Next, it's important to enhance labor demand, and this can only be done by improving the investment environment. High labor demand is derived from increased and sustained private investments. Accumulation of physical capital must be complemented with skilled workers and infrastructure supportive of private production. The government needs to increase profoundly its investments in social overhead capital, including hospitals, schools, and the like. Good governance is vital. In particular, we must ensure political stability and corruption must be eliminated. Together with this, the legal and judicial system must safeguard contractual performance and fair and timely adjudication of any contractual dispute. Then we have to focus financial reforms at the credit ration. We've seen that among the credit-starved agents in society are the micro-enterprises as well as the small and medium enterprises. So we have to really focus financial reforms at easing the constraints faced by these credit-constrained agents. In addition, there is a need to address the absent credit markets for education and the limited health insurance market. Not to mention the imperfect land and housing markets. The credit market in all of these activities will allow people to shift resources across time. Current costs can be paid for, and their claims to future income can be used to pay for their loans. And then, lastly, existing social safety nets need to be strengthened. There are already existing ones, but some need to be evaluated. There are some effective ones and they can be retained, but others will have to be redesigned to minimize program leakages. And lastly, I have to say this because Winnie Monsod is here. Let's revisit the comprehensive agrarian reform program. Let's make it credible. And let's make the implementation, let's accelerate implementation and don't make it a case of from here to eternity. Thank you very much.
Esteemed colleagues, distinguished visitors, denizens of Camelot, ladies and gentlemen, the Seattle WTO debacle of 1999 and the Asian currency crisis stoked a strident debate on the role that trade openness plays in the welfare of developing countries. The 2000 United Nations Millennium Development Goals made poverty reduction the bellwether of LDC welfare. The World Bank has estimated that the number of poor people in the world at about 986 million in 2004. Very high, but already a retreat from 1,054,000,000 that it was estimated in 2002. Where are the world's poor, and how has their number fared over the last 15 years? Table 1 gives the regions and the proportion of the population living under $1 a day for the 3 years in the last 15 years. Let me focus attention on the substantial gains in poverty reduction in East Asia, as opposed to the negligible gain in Sub-Saharan Africa. Why this stark contrast? How, in fact, do we reduce poverty? What policies do we adopt? What should our attitude be towards a set of policies that come under the rubric of trade and direct foreign investment openness? Note that we are not concerned here with financial asset integration, and of course we are not going to talk about the current subprime crisis contagion. There are two generic and conflicting sides to the poverty openness nexus. First, the naysayers. They focus on lopsided gain sharing, that an equal trade and multinational power result in the empowering of the LDC elite, exploitation of the masses, and consequently the rise in income inequality and poverty incidence. The so-called trickle-down myth thesis. The second one, the assayers, they focus on gains from trade and factor mobility. The trade and direct foreign investment openness in less developed countries stimulate economic growth, and economic growth in turn reduces poverty incidence, the so-called dollar craze syllogism, which Amartya Sen also calls the pull-up effect. Where lies the truth? What if openness, which may raise income indeed, may also raise income inequality? This is clearly a very empirical issue. As in most of economic science, the relationships between variables is usually not an if and only if affair, and so is the relationship between openness and poverty. There are multiple pathways of causality and feedback, and the net effect is frequently theoretically ambiguous. Only the data can decide. On the strength of cross-country regression analysis, and I'll hew closely to that. There might be objections, but that's part of the game. Done so far by other people, the following relations may be considered of robust consensus. First of all, openness stimulates economic growth in less developed countries. Confirmed by many authors,